We're very honored to have Alex Collier join us. This is pretty much unprecedented. He does not speak, as you may know, often or even has in quite some time. So I just wanted to say that I got a message over a year ago that the Andromedans wished to speak and that they wished Alex Collier to come to Camelot and that we could provide a service or a platform for that. So we've been working to have that happen. It's taken quite some time. We're really happy that this can happen today, and we just want to say thank you very much for making this possible to the hidden beings here and around us at this time. So, Alex, I'm actually not going to give you a big introduction beyond that today. I'm going to let you speak for yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Collier.
Can you all hear? All right, great. I want to thank all the speakers. I was at home yesterday watching the streaming, and God, they were just, George Green and just all of the speakers, just fantastic, and they give so much. And I know that all of you here give so much, and you try in your own way to share the light. I mean, there's two ways to be the light, and one is to be the candle, and the other is the mirror that reflects the candle. And we live in an extraordinary time on Earth. I mean, absolutely extraordinary. In the next several years, you're all going to think you're living in a science fiction movie. And you are living in a science fiction movie, except it isn't a movie, it's reality. If you want information on me, I think there's some on the web, both pro and con. And, I'm just going to get right into it. I'm going to give you some updates, and then we're going to talk about some things that I was specifically asked to speak to you about from Mornay. Einstein said, you cannot solve the problems of the world with the same thinking that created them. And that is no more prevalent and relevant than it is today. We have enormous problems, or challenges, I should say, challenges, that take enormous amount of brainstorming and solutions. The difficulty in trying to solve some of the issues that we have is the fact that we do not have all the data. And the two gentlemen that were up here prior to alluded to that. So did Robert Dean, Mr. Green, Bill and Carrie have. So many of the speakers, as we keep trying to go forth and gather all the information to try to solve this out. I, like many of the other speakers, and each of you have a small piece of the puzzle. Now, we're going to talk about some of that today. I know that there's an awful lot of talk about disclosure. I know that in the exopolitics community there's a great deal of talk about disclosure. I personally don't believe the United States government's ever going to admit it. It'll probably come from another country, India or China, first. Or the extraterrestrials themselves are going to show themselves and just say, hey, this charade's gone on long enough, which is probably the highest probability at this point. And we will talk about some of that today. I had honed my presentation for an hour because that's what I thought I had. In talking about solving the problems, at the very top of our power structure, the planet Earth lives in a pyramidal power structure. Extraterrestrial civilizations no longer use that power structure, the pyramidal power structure. They have been using a holographic ever since the end of the Orion Wars, okay, which would be in our linear time about 360,000 years ago. Since then, most of the civilized, benevolent civilizations, including some of the rogue, regressive groups, and they are a minority, have been using a holographic social structure. And we're going to talk about that today, okay? We're also going to talk about creating a new domain of knowing, a space in which we can create an opportunity for Earth to be mentored, because we need some help here. We are a little bit in over our heads. Okay? So, it takes me a little while to warm up here. I'm a little rusty. As of the last several days, much of the Cassini project has been classified. The reason for that is because of all the mothership activity that has now been filmed and documented in the Saturnian system around Saturn. We also have 1.5 million miles off of the South Pole, a 20-mile craft that has sat and is stationary. NASA and other organizations, telescopes have been monitoring it for 8 months. They watched its trajectory to us. It is now stationary, and there are craft going in and out of this 20-mile structure. I don't know any more about it than that. I also want you to know that there is a very large planetary structure coming in, 18 degrees, right ascension of Neptune's orbit. It should be visible sometime in the next year. There is an awful lot going on, and of course, you're all paying the bills, and no one's being told anything about it. Now, it goes far deeper than spooking the herd. That is really not the intention here at all. Okay, the intention here, and what's really been going on, is simply this. Bob Dean made a reference yesterday to almost feeling sorry for the government about the situation that they're in. I would have to concur with him on that, in the fact that the government made some treaties, cut some deals for technology in exchange for experimentation and observation, and they were tricked. They really did not know what they were getting themselves into. And now the hand has been dealt. There are many people within the UFO community that say that all the extraterrestrials are benevolent. Ladies and gentlemen, it is in my own personal opinion and based on the knowledge that I have that that is completely irresponsible to say. We live in a duality. Because if it was all love and light, we would not be going down this road to global fascism and the powers that be wanting to eliminate 2/3 of the world's population. That is not love and light. Okay? So, we have a lot of things to cover, and a lot of things are going to be occurring. The economic situation is what it is. Mr. Green gave a fantastic presentation yesterday. There is absolutely nothing that I disagree with him about. He made a reference to buying gold and silver. I think that's a really good idea. However, you cannot eat gold and silver. It is imperative that you start storing food, and I will tell you simply why. If they do crash the dollar, which they are going to do, in order to create a global currency and a global government, you won't be able to buy food. He made reference to the currency being devalued 6-1 in the next several months. Gasoline will go to $18, $20 a gallon. Truckers will not be able to deliver product. What you have is what you'll have. Okay? It is imperative to, if you can, start forming within your community gardens, figuring it out. You need to start talking about this. I know most people are simply not open to it. Just do the best you can. I mean, we're all fighting the fight. Now, America is on the front line of this, and the reason is simple. America created a new domain of knowing. America was created to get rid of the aristocracy of the old world, to create something new, to create individual liberties, to create personal freedoms. That was never known in the world before. And we have that. And because of our apathy, we have lost virtually all of those. And it is no one else's fault. It is our own fault. We have known since the 60s that the CIA has been trafficking narcotics. We know this. We have known that the CIA has been assassinating and overthrowing governments. We have known that there's been a cover-up of what there is on the moon and inside our solar system. We know this. We know that there is extraterrestrial life. We know this. That is no longer the discussion. We know that the government has become corrupt. Okay? The personages that rule the planet are not us. They are not human beings. And I will say this with my very last breath. They are not us. Okay? Now, what happened was that they took over because they think holographically. It was very easy to get around the pyramidal power structure on Earth because it's completely obsolete everywhere else out there. So if you come in using a holograph, using holographic technology, but thinking, what you do is you create your structure everywhere so no matter what happens, whether one group gets taken out, another group takes out, is gone, the other components are still there to rise up and still manage and control. Because each of these components have a picture of the whole. And they have all the technology and everything they need to continue to control and dominate and brainwash. Okay? We're over our heads here. But we're not alone. Now, what happened was they took over. It was very easy to take over the governments. You dangle technology. You dangle knowledge. You dangle ancient history. And you give them this technology in secret. Okay? You have it. We're going to give it to you. The United States of America made this mistake. So, Bob Dean, again, Mr. Dean made a reference yesterday to the missing trillions of dollars from the Federal Reserve. Okay, I have been told that it's $24 trillion is what they carry on their books. And virtually most of that has gone into the secret space program and the colonization of our solar system. You can choose to believe that or not. It doesn't matter, and it doesn't change the reality of it. Okay? So what happened was the pirates took over the ship. Okay? The governments, realizing that they had all this technology and that they were 1,000 years more advanced than we were, instead of telling everyone, hey, we have a problem here, and standing tall and doing the right thing, they joined the pirates. We are literally only now, as passengers on the ship, finding out and realizing that we've been hijacked. Okay? That's the movement. And many people are going to have a very difficult time when they realize that reality is not at all what they think it is, or what they thought it was. Even those of us who have been exposed to this for many, many years have oh shit moments. It's impossible not to. You know? America is the focal point here of this, and the reason for that is because Americans, despite our educational system, are still very smart. We are very able to think out of the box. We are excellent problem solvers, and we are armed to the teeth. They constantly will have to be looking over their shoulder unless they take us out. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the goal. They cannot have a new world they cannot have a world government without taking out the U.S. And I mean taking it to its knees. Now, this is not the portion, this is not where the whole presentation is going, but it's important to give you this background because the world used to look to us for the ideals of freedom. Immigrants all over the world have come to America. My grandparents were immigrants to this country because they believed in individual liberties. They believed in freedom. They believed in the principles that were in the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights. And ladies and gentlemen, that is who we are. We are not the crap that they show you on television. Gentlemen, you are not. Gentlemen, you are not the weak-kneed, sissy morons they try to portray us on television either. You are strong, you are family-oriented, you have faith, and you are warriors. And you're going to need to take a stand and defend your country and your family. Make no mistake about it. The two gentlemen that were here talking about the super soldiers, yeah, they're here. They're definitely here. They're hybrids. They're here. Okay? And there's more that's been going on. I was hoping that one of them would talk about what happened in Dulce, New Mexico. But they did not. And I don't necessarily want to go there either because, oh God, it's sick. It's sick. Okay? No, there's other things to cover. But I bring it up because many people that have the knowledge, that have been in black ops, special ops, that have been involved in the ET component, know about that small rogue group. And they're not gone yet. Some of them are still here. All right? And they still create and wreak havoc. I also want to tell you, and I have been asked to share this with you, about the vaccine, the new swine flu vaccine. Mornay has told me to tell you, or everyone, that this vaccine will permanently damage your DNA. So, whatever else comes out of that, it will permanently damage your DNA. Now, many of us in the community and in the world as a whole, we can't even agree on what the problem is. And because of that, we will never even agree on a solution. So it's imperative that open dialogue continue to occur. And I know that for those who have been in the exopolitics, that's what I'm basically calling the UFO community, exopolitics now, you've had a remarkable amount of patience. And your biggest tests are coming. Because as more and more of this information comes out, more and more people are going to want to ask you, who they thought were crazy, what the hell's going on? They're going to want to know. And you're going to have to try, in a very calm manner, explain it to them. Even though you yourselves are going to have all the butterflies, you're going to be wondering, how the hell am I going to even deal with this? Because you have some background information. Now, this ET component is really about us. It is our destiny to travel the stars. It is our destiny to continue to move out and colonize space, especially our own solar system. It is not our destiny to be killed by vaccines in war. You will have to make those choices. My choices are already made. Okay? My decisions are clear. I am the father of 5 children. There is no way I'm going to back down and I'm going to sell them into slavery. Never going to happen. Okay? You need to make your own choices. Okay. I once asked Theseus, one of the Andromedans, who has since crossed over, what was to become of us? Some of this may be a review for some of you. What was to become of us? What was going to happen to our race, to our civilization? And he just looked at me and he said, this is how we see you. Responsible freedom of self-determination. Becoming truly self-confident and free, to unconditionally be responsible for oneself without being coerced to accept some higher authority. In our galaxy, the more advanced the civilizations have become in the center of the galaxy, the riffraff had to start moving out to the outskirts of the galaxy. the riffraff. It's just like Star Wars. Okay? We are in the boonies, and that's why we have some riffraff here. We're not the only planetary race that is having problems with the riffraff. Okay? But what's unique about us is that genetically we are considered to the Andromedan race genetic royalty. And I have been saying this since day one. We are extremely unique. And it's because of that uniqueness we have enormous strength. We have enormous capacity for emotions. We have enormous intent and drive to not only to survive, but to create. What we lack is faith in ourselves. At the end of World War II, well, let me put it another way. The Nazis didn't lose the war. Okay? Germany lost the war, but the Nazis were brought here and to Russia. Okay? Now, the mind technology, the mind control, the space technology, the reverse engineering, the technology that they had been given prior to the war by a small group of extraterrestrials from the star system of Aldebaran was brought here and honed and polished and combined with other technology that the Zeta 2s, the Dows, what many folks know as the Greys, all those began to complement each other. Remarkable technology. Technology we absolutely need here. I mean, the combustion engine has been obsolete for 70 years. I understand that India also is now going to experiment on wireless electricity. Hell, Tesla did that in 1902 in Colorado Springs. We know it works. Okay, but those that were funding his experiment asked him, where's the meter? And he said, well, there is none, it's free. They shut it down. Okay? The question is, well, we'll get to that. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around here. The question, the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, what kind of country do you want to live in? What kind of world do you want to live in? Clearly what we're doing now doesn't work. It has run its course. We have a government that has a lot of problems. We have corruption within it, not all of it, but we clearly have corruption within it. They have sold out and have been totally compromised. They themselves don't know what to do. And and their only solution is to turn the power of the military and the power of the pharmaceutical company against the American people. That's their solution. That is not okay. That's not okay. It's time for the UFO, the Exopolitics Committee, to start creating another domain of knowing. And that domain of knowing is two things. What does a holographic social structure look like? How can we live with a holographic social structure mirrored after some of the principles that our founding fathers laid, but it wasn't perfect? What could we do now? And we're not just talking about the United States. This has to be a global thing. This has to be a global movement. What does that look like? So we need to create and start groups, dialogues, talking about living in a holographic structure where all the information that is available, black op, secret, top secret, above top secret, is available to everyone. But we could just start with the information that we do have. The rest of it will come. It's going to collapse on itself because it's no good. It cannot stand on its own. And the minute we turn our focus away from them and they can't feed off our fear, it will collapse in a heartbeat. Because where focus goes, energy flows. Okay? As long as they keep you looking at it, they are using the energy of your soul, of your spirit, to feed this monstrosity. It's time to just ignore them. turn your focus away and let's create what we really, really want. But we have to decide what that is. Along with that, I have been asked to start asking people to talk to people, you're the first to hear this, about what would it look like for you, for Earth, and we'll start with the exopolitics community, what would it look like for you to be mentored by several benevolent extraterrestrial races? What would that look like? What would we need to do to establish not only that communication, but at the same time have us feel safe with checks and balances so that they can walk their talk and we have to walk our talk. Open mentorship is our destiny. It's going to happen anyway, but we cannot wait for the government to turn itself around. It can't because it's not in control. All right? It is not in control. So, we have to turn our focus away from all that drama and figure out another way. What I want to do now is read to you what I was given way back when regarding creating a domain of knowing. This also came from Versailles. Create another domain of knowing, communicating and being. In other words, the domain of calling forth or generating your intent needs to be more distinct. Your physics, as you call it, is a good example of this calling forth. There have been men on your planet who have called forth new domains of thinking that never existed before here. They invented it. They didn't fantasize it. They didn't pretend. They literally created this new context from what you now call physics. Your humanity is strong with this kind of example. No being, however, makes the distinction that this is what they are. I would like to give you an example. Your concept of human rights wasn't so long ago that no such thing existed on your planet. It just simply didn't exist. You Terrans did not have any rights. Only the kings and the priests had their rights. But most of you Terrans do not have any rights. So you and other Terrans created human rights from nothing. You created the domain that created not only the rights to come forth, you created the language, and then you communicated it. And this communication that you gave had power because it was full of intent. It has the power not only to represent and to invoke, but it also to literally bring it into being. This is what your races need to do in order to clearly know yourselves. Now, in talking about that, let's talk about religions for a moment. The pyramidal structure of our governments primarily have come out of ancient Rome. And Rome was essentially controlled by 13 families. Okay? Those 13 families still exist today. Many of the world's religions, though they've had a tremendous amount of value and have brought an enormous amount of comfort to many people in our history and in our present day, they focus on shame, guilt, sin, and control. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the trap. Okay? They don't focus on self-responsibility. They don't focus on life or respect. They, in fact, create more division than we have ever known. Now, did they start out that way? With the exception of the Roman Catholic Church I'm just going to be blunt about it. No. But the powers that be are masters of infiltrating movements. And what they do, and I'll give you the best example I can give you, is that of a charitable foundation. A foundation is created using the power of the people and the monies, the resources of the people, to do something that is of a benefit to humanity. As it's moving and it begins to gain power, and it starts to spread and shift consciousness, awareness, the powers that be will walk in and say, hey, we really believe in what you're doing, and we're going to give you a $25 million grant to help you continue to do your work. But we want to put one of our members on the board just to make sure that the money is spent wisely. And then they do it again, and now you have a second board member, and now you have a third board member. And before you know it, that movement, that foundation, instead of going up and creating more consciousness, more awareness, is now heading the other way. Okay? And now they also control the wealth of that foundation. Okay? We have been thinking in a pyramidal structure, in a third density structure. They're in fourth density, in holographic. We have to think the same way. And we have to be talking about how is it that we got ourselves into this. Now, this isn't a question of, well, it's essential that we put blame to the side for the moment. There's plenty of that, and there will be plenty of that. What we need is the knowledge. We need to know how these structures work so that we can create something different, something in total opposition to it. Because I can't imagine everybody's happy with the way things are. Okay? And this isn't just about the United States. This is about the global population. Because the extraterrestrial races don't see us as separate countries. They see us as one race. Okay? And we're all between a rock and a hard place, pretty much. Okay? At the moment. Taking personal responsibility is huge, but it really is the first and the biggest step to achieving full consciousness. Okay? I'm going to read you a quote that I found. It's from a gentleman named Little Hawk. He's a Native American Indian with the Mohawk tribe. Take credit for your mistakes, not what you do good, because you're supposed to be doing good anyway. Okay? We've all made mistakes. We've all screwed up. Okay? But that's part of the learning process. Okay? If you had all knowledge and you were all seeing, you wouldn't need to be here. Okay? So, collectively and individually, we need to start looking at the world and saying, what has my contribution been? Now, I'm not talking about going out and trying to save the world. It's not about that at all. Okay? It's really about each one of us individually. It's about being the light. It's about not feeling shame for our mistakes. It's about absolutely unlearning that you are not a sinner. That is such crap that I want to vomit every time I hear that. Okay, you are not a sinner. You are a spiritual being in a physical body. Or as George Green said, rent-a-wreck. I like that. That was really cute. Okay? Now, look at the structure that is overlaying us. Governments of control and dominance, a monetary system that controls everything, corporations and banks that own the debt of every nation, which means literally they're in control because they have the debt. Okay? We have medical and pharmaceutical companies who have had cures for cancer and other diseases. okay, that now want to damage your DNA with untested vaccinations. Imagine how afraid they are of you. Can you just for a moment imagine how afraid of you they are? And now you've got to ask yourself the question, why are they afraid of you? Okay? Because we are awesome, awesome creator gods. We have the ability to create reality, to bring it forth, to call it forth. And they have done everything they can to continue to make sure that we believe we're powerless. This is why so many extraterrestrial races are coming here now. Okay? Because they know different. On some level, ladies and gentlemen, we consciously have called forth this drama. This is really about us. Okay? We have called this forth. Okay? This is really about us. It's not about them. And we need to step into our power here. We need to fully understand it's time for us to step into our power as a planetary race and not see the borders anymore. Now, I would not be that opposed to a global government if it was set up with a constitution like the U.S. Constitution and an absolute Bill of Rights. But even then, that's not a guarantee. Because if people don't defend those rights, if people don't defend their liberties, what good is it? We've just experienced that. Okay? We've just experienced that. And in 1913, when the Federal Reserve took over, that's when the train started going the other way. And here we are. $100 trillion in debt. An absolutely ridiculous number. Okay? It's probably higher. Who knows? Okay? Now, in creating our holographic model of a civilization or a social structure, do we want to have a monetary system? Do we actually need a monetary system? Because we're the only ones that I'm aware of in our galaxy that still use a monetary system. Okay? In fact, many, many years ago, I had been asked by Morin Emphasis to put together a short presentation on money. They already knew about it, but I did the best that I could. And when it was over, Faseus just looked at me and he goes, I don't understand. And I said, well, what do you not understand? He says, I don't understand why you have to pay to live on a planet you were born on. Okay? And ladies and gentlemen, that has haunted me ever since. And that one little thing takes you completely out of the box. Okay? For the first time you begin to think, well, geez, what would it look like not to have a currency? You know? Advanced civilizations, all their needs are taken care of. All of their standard day-to-day life needs are met by the government. No strings attached. And then you donate your time and your expertise and your skills to do something you want that benefits the whole. Okay? Now, I'm not talking about communism either. It's something bigger than that. Okay? But we need some help in defining what that is. Now, we have a lot of really brilliant, intelligent people here and in the world. And I know other people around the world have been talking about similar things, creating a different society, and maybe even a holographic society, and what that looks like, a holographic power structure. So no matter what happens, it will totally always stand on its own. The Founding Fathers tried to do something like this when they created all the states as equal, in control, and separate from the government. That was pretty much their intent, whether they realized it or not. I also want you to know that we have a lot of help. We are getting a lot of help from the spiritual side as well as the dimensional side. And I'm not talking about just dimensional beings, I am talking about also extraterrestrials. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. The vision at Valley Forge of George Washington. I know that a lot of people on the net, if you've not researched it, I suggest that you do. Some say it's a hoax. It's not a hoax. I also want you to know that Thomas Jefferson, in his diaries, was out walking at his estate in Monticello, was trying to figure out the verbiage, the language, in regards to the Declaration of Independence, when he was met by a hooded man who he never really clearly saw, who gave him the conversation and the pieces that he needed to finish the Declaration of Independence. I also want you to know that in the Constitutional Hall, when everybody was bantering and going back and forth, and it looked like no one was going to sign the Declaration of Independence, up on the top railing of the hall, a man appeared out of nowhere, and for 20 minutes gave an oration about how important this was, not only to the United States and to the moment, but to the entire world as a whole. And as soon as he was done, everybody rushed to the table and signed the Declaration of Independence. Benjamin Franklin and the Sergeant-at-Arms went upstairs to try to talk to this man because they wanted to know who he was. There were armed guards at every single door. The armed guards swore no one went in, no one went out. So there is divine providence here, ladies and gentlemen. It is not a mistake that you live in this country. It is not a mistake that you are who you are. Enough is enough. It is time we step into our power. And very simple steps will do this. First, you have to make a decision, and the decision is no more bullshit. Okay? No more bullshit. Okay? America is the reason it is because we allowed it to happen. By our apathy. Okay? We have elections. We know we're voting for the lesser of two evil. We know that. But we do it anyway. Okay? I also want you to know that the President of the United States is not in charge of our government. Okay? He's just not. I want you to know that there are 47 layers of top secret clearances above the President of the United States. 47 layers. You want to know your secret government? That's your secret government. He can't even get a clearance. He doesn't even know who to talk to get a clearance to find out about this stuff. Okay? So, it is important that we turn our focus a little bit and we start creating something different. This is what the founders did. This is what many people have done throughout the world. Okay, the Renaissance was something exactly like this. Okay? They threw off Rome and they tried to do something different. Rome, the church, the government of Rome, they threw it off and they tried to create something different. And it went for a while. Okay? Mentoring. The conversation in the exopolitics community, in my personal opinion, is no longer, do UFOs exist? It's completely irrelevant. Okay? We already know they do. Where do they come from? That has some validity. Is it metal? That doesn't have any validity. It doesn't matter. Okay? What matters is, why are they here? And what can we do to learn from this experience? Now, the reason that many of the extraterrestrial groups benevolent are not talking to the government is because they know they're compromised. I will tell you that there has begun some mentoring off-world of our military. Off-world. It has begun. But that is such a small piece. What really needs to happen is we need to create a new domain of knowing, and we need to call this information directly to ourselves. No more middleman. No more middlemen. Okay? They can't be trusted. We have to do it ourselves. Now, how do we go about that? I don't have all those pieces. The idea was to share it and plant the seed inside of all of you to start thinking about, what does mentoring look like? How would you imagine extraterrestrials coming down and saying, okay, folks, you have pollution. We can help you with that, but these are the steps you need to do. Here's the technology that already exists on your planet to do this. And here is how you need to use it responsibly. Again, self-responsibility. Food, the growing of food. Water. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the technology to have all the drinking water we want. Just build desalination plants. We have all the water we need. But they won't spend a dime on any of that. Because if you don't have water, they have control over you. Okay, we have so much technology. We have free energy on the earth. Okay, Tesla did it in 1902. We know it exists. Okay? A hydrogen engine in a car was built in 1955 and did 110 laps at the Indianapolis 500 racetrack. The plans were bought by Gulf Western Oil and never seen from again. That's 1955. Okay? There's just so much. There's so much. The law of consistency, which is what the Andromedans call their holographic civilization, is set up like this. Every child, whether they understand the knowledge or not, is given the latest and greatest technology or knowledge, information, data as it arrives. It starts at the youngest level. It doesn't start at the top and stay there, and then they decide, well, we'll wait till they're 25 to tell them about it. That is not the same soul. We need the children to evolve to advanced maturity a lot faster than they are. Yes, they're growing up pretty fast, but not to advanced maturity. Okay? Every single piece of information, every single tool that is available to everyone across the board. The children that graduate from high school or school in the Andromedan civilization are smarter than their parents. And no one has a problem with that because they inherit the society. They're the ones that continue to go out and expand the society and create the holographic pillars of their society. Okay? It is not. We are completely going backwards here. And if that isn't evident to everyone, I don't know what is. The law of consistency is that every truth is spoken. Everyone is forgiven. There is no monetary system. There is an absolute free healthcare system, but it has nothing to do with pharmaceuticals. It has to do with color, light, and sound, which is what we are, even in our physicality. Color, light, and sound. It has to do the advancement of the soul. We have a damaged DNA structure, so when we reincarnate, we do not always remember things. There are people who do great jobs doing past life regression, and people can pull some of those pieces, but to have cognizant memory when you come back into physicality is something we don't have presently. They have that because they don't have a damaged DNA structure. Can our DNA structures be repaired? According to them, absolutely yes. But we need to make some changes. We need to create the space for us to be free enough to explore those possibilities. We cannot do that with the power structure that's in existence today. So we need to create another domain of knowing. And that begins with yourself. The love that you withhold is the pain that you carry lifetime after lifetime. And it all begins with us, each one of us individually. Now, Ladies and gentlemen, if we work, start thinking, start talking about a mentoring relationship, what that looks like, how would we want to put it together, how would even go so far as to say, okay, here's where we want to do this, here's how we want to do it. Who do we want present? Do we televise it to the masses? Everything, every detail, they absolutely will meet us halfway. They are not going to come in here and save us or rescue us from ourselves. They're not going to do it. If any of you are familiar with the Andromeda information, one of the things that was first shared with me when I became an adult was that in our galaxy, tyranny showed up very unexpectedly. And them and other races that are part of the Andromedan Council have come back in time to this moment on our planet and the other star systems that are having problem with the pirates to this time period. This shift in consciousness here is what flips it either way. They're going to intervene, and they have been intervening in very, very subtle ways, because no one wants to live in tyranny, not now or in the future. No one does. So this is our moment. This is our moment as a humanity, as a race, to really decide, are we or are we not going to unite as one? Are we or are we not going to watch each other's back? Are we or are we not going to stop taking crap from bureaucracy? We have to make a decision, and that decision is upon you. And you're going to be forced very, very soon to make a decision. And I'm not just talking to you folks here in the audience. I know that this is being streamed, and I know that these DVDs and things have a life of their own. I know that better than anybody. Okay? The time is now, and all it does is it starts with you, just to make a decision. Okay? To do something, to be radical, to be a rebel again. Most of us guys in this audience, we know what that's like. Being a rebel. We grew up shooting guns, chewing toast into the shape of a pistol, okay? Rescuing the damsel, excited about the next adventure. We know about that. You know? That's part of who we are. We are not domesticated lapdogs. We're just not. And I'm not going to be. And I'm not talking about going out and causing crimes. I'm talking about defending yourself, your liberties, your rights, your family, and your community. Okay, because nobody else is going to do it for you. In fact, they're all working against us. And even they don't realize what they're doing. They really don't. Because so much information is compartmentalized. They don't realize the big picture. But many people are waking up very, very quickly, and I know I'm preaching to the choir in that. But it's amazing to see how many people are waking up and questioning everything. Okay? This is our moment. The next several years is our moment. And it really needs to begin now. 2012 is not the end of the world. It isn't going to happen. It's not our destiny. Okay? However, the Earth will be going through some transitions because we will be crossing the galactic plane. And the galactic plane has an intense magnetic gravitational field. There will be changes. It's inevitable. Mr. Green touched on some of that yesterday. Okay, and others have talked about this as well. Okay, it's going to happen. So you need to start thinking about, where do I really want to be? Okay, if it's here, fine. Make the best of it. But create your space of independence. Don't take it for granted any longer. We can't. The whole world is looking at us. The Asians, the Europeans, they can't believe how stupid we are. Gospel, they can't believe how stupid we are. They're like, what's wrong with the Americans? You know? I don't have an answer, do you? We watch TV. What I'd like to do, because I did have some extra time, is I would really love to entertain some questions. If that's all right. Easy ones.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. This is excellent. And I want to address the mentoring suggestion because I think it's actually fascinating. I think that this is coming directly from the Andromedans.
Yes, it is.
That you're getting that you've been in contact with. And mentoring is an interesting way of putting it, okay? If you mentor somebody, you do not rule them. You do not tell them what to do. Okay? That's key. Mm-hmm. And nobody has even suggested this. I think it's fascinating. So what we have here is the notion that you can be in contact with beings that can help teach you. Now this is going on. This is going on. I'm aware of it. Camelot is aware of it. By God, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that. There is mentoring going on. But you do have to ask for that to happen. And you have to be as fully conscious in the process and as responsible and have that ability. You cannot sit there and ask them to do for you. It's not what it's about. And so I would love it if you would talk about, because you obviously have been mentored. So who better to teach us what does that look like? How is the interaction with you? Just describe, and I know that you have maybe talked to some degree, but in your interactions, if you could discuss some of the ways they have mentored you to this point.
Okay. Know that my mentoring has gone on with times that I have literally been kicking and screaming. The biggest portion of the mentoring has really been, why do I believe things? And what is it that I believe? So a lot of times the question will come, I will ask a question or I will have a perspective, and they will immediately come back and say, well, why do you believe that? You know, what is your process of believing that that's true? And, for example, religions. It was one of the biggest things I had when I was a kid. And it was an issue that my father brought up to me as well when I told him about this. We have formed perceptions of reality that are not based in reality. They're only based on perception. Now, in accepting that perception as reality, what we do is we reinforce that illusion. And that's what we have done on Earth, is we have reinforced the illusion about who we are. About our strengths, about our power, about how we're supposed to live on the Earth, about being stuck on the Earth, about how we are supposed to raise our children. We have bought into these perceptions. The hardest things were to really look at myself. And this is really where the work is, and it's always with yourself. The most difficult work has probably been for me in the last 5, 6, 7 years. Questions like, well, who am I? They don't answer it. They don't say, well, you're this and this and this. But what they do is they have guided me to what it is who it is that I want to be. The first was understanding that you are not just a physicality. That's the first thing to grasp. You are not a physicality. And just like some of the speakers said yesterday, I believe it was Mr. Green who talked about, there is a soul and it's 22 grams. I think they've measured that in body weight. That is really who you are. and connecting to who that person really is, what that essence is all about, you begin to realize, oh my God, I am not at all who I thought I was. And I'm purposely being vague because I don't necessarily want to tell you who I am, other than to say that who I am here on earth in this lifetime and the mistakes that I have made, on some level I knew better not to make those mistakes. Okay? But we do. We experiment. We create. As far as the meaning of life, they would never tell me what that was exactly. All they would say, it just is, you are creating your own adventure. Okay? So again, the responsibility is on me. As far as mentoring, to want to talk and to speak, the idea was to just keep it very, very simple. To just share their perspectives and let the people do whatever they wanted with it. And it doesn't matter whether anyone believes it or not. People know truth. People know bullshit. Eventually it all comes to the surface. It has to. Because all of you are just like me. You all know better. You know what's real. It's just a question of detaching ourselves from our addiction to physicality. And that's what it is now. It's become an addiction because the focus is on the physicality. We're not objective anymore. As a soul, when you have an out-of-body experience and you detach from your physical form, you are completely objective. You have a 360-degree peripheral view. Okay? And that's because you're objective. You're not addicted. You're not stuck in the body or addicted to the body. And that's the part that they have been working on with me the most, is to actually feel and know that essence of myself as much as possible. So when we talk about mentoring, the mentoring is to get us from where we are here to self-empowerment. That's what I'm talking about. Once we have achieved self-empowerment, and it won't take long, folks. It really won't take long. We will know exactly what to do because we are spiritual beings. We are eternal. There is no age to us. And that's not a metaphysical blind. That is a reality. So the mentoring is to help us move out of our addiction to physicality into full power as spiritual beings. And it isn't full of dogma. It isn't any of that. It's all about introspection, voluntary introspection. That's what it is.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Collier. Thanks for being here today. I wanted to ask you something about something you mentioned in your interview before. You mentioned that an ancient race called the Patal created human beings probably so long ago. I wondered if you could just elaborate on that, because I always just wondered about it ever since you said it. Thanks.
It is believed that an ancient race, some of them call them the founders, other cultures call them the Patal, created not only the wormholes, but created most of the physicality in what we know as our universe. Because as they travel, they are finding civilizations and the ruins of civilizations far beyond anything that even they know. And we're talking 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th density space travelers who are traveling not only in moving in and out of our physicality and other physicalities, but even their own. The wormholes is the best example that I've been given. No advanced space race has any idea how they were actually built, but we know that they exist. In fact, there are several that have snapped, connecting our galaxy to some of the other nearby galaxies. They've snapped, and no one knows how to fix them, because we don't even know how they were built. So,
hi, I'm Dan Bender, the one who's working on the streaming, and I was asked by the streaming audience, which is now up to 1,500 members currently watching, and I think we've probably had over 10,000 have tuned in on this particular segment, and I picked, thank you. I've kind of picked 3 quick questions, hopefully they're quick, that I was asked to pass on. They're randomly chosen, so they may not be the best ones we've got out there, but what the heck. One of the first ones was, what free energy devices do you know about?
One I know is magnetic. It's essentially was invented by a gentleman in Tennessee that was just a bit larger than a shoebox. And it was generated by magnetics, and it had an engine inside of it, and it spun. Once you started it, it would power a home completely independent, no matter where it was. And I understand that the gentleman and the technology vanished about 8 years ago. He tried to get a patent on it, and that's when he basically went off the grid.
Okay, next question.
Because he demonstrated that technology. I just wanted to finish. He actually demonstrated that technology.
Okay.
And that he had began building that technology back in 1976.
Second question I have is, can mentoring happen on the internet? Now, I have to admit, I wasn't completely paying attention to everything because I was so busy with everything on the internet, but
I don't
that's
know.
the question I have.
That's a great question. I don't know.
Okay.
I wouldn't see why not.
Okay, I guess we have to figure it out. My little side jobs I've got to do. Anyway, last question I have here so I can let some of the other folks get back in here. How do you deal with the greed issue?
I don't have an answer for that.
Okay.
I mean, what is greed? That they'll never have enough? It's basically grounded in fear, I would think. Fear of loss, fear of abstinence, fear of not having enough, fear of loss. To me, that's what greed is. It's just a fear. Can it become an addiction? Apparently it has. But I personally don't have an answer for that.
Well, thank you from the internet audience.
Okay, thank you.
I just had, you had mentioned about possible coming changes, like on a geological level. To me, it seems so chance. Like I'd appreciate maybe some thoughts on your thoughts on. Do we just trust our intuition as far as where to go, what to do, how to plan for something like that, or it seems a rather daunting thing to try to get your head around.
Well, you know, change occurs all the time, and you do things intuitively all the time as well, whether you realize it or not. You might change the way you go home one day and do something different, and then when you get home you find out that right where you would have been there was a horrific car crash. That in fact just happened to my wife. And she did something completely out of the ordinary for her. And she would have been right there. So, you know, everybody has their guides, everybody has their own intuition. I'm not always the most intuitive at times either. But it's just, it's the only way I know to answer this is you just learn to trust yourself. It could be that you'll be guided to go out of town when something happens. I don't have that answer. Or you will be right where you don't think you need to be, but you're going to be there for a very, very good reason. And out of it will come out a self-empowerment that you never would have had before. We all have our own paths, and we are all creating our own realities. And we all have our own personal agendas for learning and growing and becoming who we are. Your experience is going to be very different than mine. And I don't know how to tell you. I mean, hey, if I had a hard date, but I never do, and I don't get a hard date. And I've made that mistake in the past about giving hard dates, when in fact they were probabilities. So the fact is, I don't know either. But you just have to trust that you will be exactly where you need to be when you need to be there. And I know that, that's kind of a foo-foo, la-di-la answer, but I don't, that's my own experience as well. you know, that I just have to pray and hope that, you know, have faith that I'll be exactly where I need to be.
I appreciate